Hi, my name is Sam. I'm 20 years old, and this is my story.
So tell us about a time when you were like in your high school years, like something that impacted your life.
Ooh, high school for me was a little bit all over the place. I think I personally just want to talk about my struggle, at least in my home life, that I don't think a lot of people realize was going on. In high school, I kind of struggled, not me personally financially, but my home life struggled financially. Walking into high school, I think my only real year of being a high school student was my freshman year. And honestly, walking into high school from middle school as a freshman, I didn't really take it as serious. I'm not gonna lie about that one. I used to skip class my freshman year, trying to be not the cool kid, but more of a friendly kind of person. Knowing how I am, I've always been outgoing. But I think once I hit my sophomore year, I kind of had to slow my roll. Since age 16, on my birthday, I had to get a job. There was no choice for me. At first, it started off just as me helping my mom with my own personal finances. I was an expensive kid, I won't lie about that. I loved to get my nails done and my hair and makeup and clothes, new shoes. So that's where it really began. But as it came, I don't even know how to put this, but as it came to fruition for me, a lot of things were going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about until I had reached that age of I was able to bring in an income. So going into high school, my parents did end up separating. So we went from 2 incomes to 1.
How did that impact you when they separated?
It hit me hard. I won't lie about that. My parents separating hit me really, really bad. I was a big daddy's girl, and that was my best friend at the time. So not having him in my life when I had just, finished puberty and I'm growing into becoming or trying to figure out myself as a woman or a young adult, as you will, it was kind of hard to navigate, I would say, relationships at that age, because I didn't have him to turn to be like, oh, how am I supposed to be treated? But also not even that, just the financial security that my dad brought to my mom. My mom was a stay-at-home wife for a while she was in school for nursing. So him as a police officer kind of lightened that load, and he was the main breadwinner. But unfortunately, situations happened where we ended up having to move out and leave my mother's home. And we ended up moving out here to Pennsauken. So that was rough. But even before we ended up getting this house, we were in a 2-bedroom apartment. It was me, my 2 brothers, my mom, and her boyfriend. So me and my one brother shared a room, and my other brother ended up having to sleep on the couch for a while since he came back home.
And so financially, in what ways did you have to step up?
So eventually when I started working, like I said, it started off small and over the years it kind of got bigger. So I ended up, taking on let me pay my cell phone bill, let me help with groceries, let me help, if my mom needed anything with her hair done or anything, gas, because I know when I started working, I was taking my mom's car everywhere. So I would chip in for gas if she needed extra money for rent, or like I said, groceries. That's pretty much where I would step in. I was kind of the cushion for a while. But that ended up being a long time.
Now, did you and your siblings all have jobs?
We did. My brother at the time was a manager. My other brother worked underneath him, and then I had just started working for him as well. We all worked in the same fast food industry, I would say, which it made it easier since we could all catch rides. But me being in high school, I had to work a different shift than everyone else. So since they had graduated, they would work the mornings and I would work the night, and I would have to literally wake up, my school schedule was terrible. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to go to school, to come back, literally to get off the bus, to go right to work. I didn't really have any free time.
And how did that affect you in school?
It made me feel drained. I didn't feel like I honestly had the motivation to be the best student I possibly could have been. I used to have to take that time on the bus or during breakfast to catch up on actual schoolwork. And even in class, I had to figure out a way to get the work done because I knew I didn't have the time at home. not only that, I wasn't allowed to really experience high school at its fullest potential. I never got to always attend the pep rallies or the games after school, go to practice, or even just be on any sports team. Prior to this, I used to play softball, soccer, really active. I used to dance, but once that situation happened, it's kind of stopped me.
So, okay, so you were saying you were working. At what point did you work a lot of hours or maybe even have more than one job?
I believe I started going through jobs after maybe a year. So junior year, I changed jobs multiple times just to find a better schedule when it came to transportation. I didn't have a car at the time, and it was kind of hard for me to save money for a car at the time. But I know that my end of junior year into my senior year, I was working 2 jobs at a time to help with my mom's financials, just to make it easier on her. Throughout my high school career, my mom was going through a lot of health problems as well as financial problems. I know when I came into high school, unfortunately, she had a muscle spasm, and that ended up giving her a bad foot. Later in high school, I found out, I think in my junior year to my senior year, that she had a brain aneurysm that she lived with her whole life. That was a little bit scary.
Did she know did she know anything health-wise before that aneurysm?
Honestly, no, not besides her foot. She's always been pretty healthy, but there were definitely signs. My mom used to have a lot of bad migraines, and they would always start on like the left side of her head. So that was kind of a telltale sign, but she always had them, so it was nothing new for us. But she used to get light sensitive, sound sensitive, and have to stay in the room because it was too much sometimes. Like she could hear like a dog's leash outside, and it would be so bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it literally was a bad trigger for her. A lot of the sounds, and especially like during the daytime, if she woke up with one, it was very hard.
How did you cope with that in school? Like, how'd you handle that?
I think I tried my best to be strong for my mom. Even now, I try my best to be strong for my mom. That's my best friend. She'll always be my best friend. But I just tried to lighten the load the best I could when it came to bills. I knew that was a major stress point for her. I mean, we went from a 2-parent household to a single-parent household, and my mom has 3 kids. In high school, she had 3 kids to raise by herself in an apartment. It wasn't the best, but we figured it out. She tells me this thing, like, we might not have it all, but we'll have it all together, and that's what matters to her. So anything that she needed, I'd step up for, whether it was just her getting her nails done or paying a water bill or a mortgage bill, anything to help her just not have that stress was worth it.
And what were some other like health concerns that you had with your mom in high school?
I think mostly it was her brain aneurysm. I think my biggest fear, and even my fear now, is that unfortunately I had to face the reality of I could wake up one day and my mom could have had a stroke in her sleep due to stress. I think that's my biggest fear, just finding her and just having to face the fact that I'd lose my best friend. That's always been my fear. And recently with her having esophageal cancer, unfortunately, it is what it is. And it sucks to say that I've had to have those conversations with my mom of her will and testament, what's for me, what's for my brothers, et cetera, et cetera. I ended up becoming my mom's power of attorney as well as her emergency contact because of how close we became. So I kind of have that on my shoulders. But I feel like I'm at least happy that while she's here, I know what she would want for later, if that ever happens, God forbid, of course. But that just living through that and like constantly dealing with that is just, it's a lot. And I try to keep it as together as I can just for her. It definitely gave me a lot of anxiety. Like December, October of this year, with obviously the situation of COVID, it wasn't the best for us. I had gotten laid off, unfortunately, before COVID. That wasn't great. As soon as it started, I had gotten laid off. I was in college at the time, and I ended up having to withdraw because I knew that I needed some type of income, not only for myself, but for her. So ever since that, I've just been back to full-time working. But like I said, I'm blessed to have a job that lets me take off the time for her. And like I said, I believe it was December, October, I ended up dealing with a lot of anxiety to the point where I didn't really want to get up. I didn't want to go out. It was literally to the point where I didn't even want to go to work. It was just home and just dealing with, the money and then my mother, and then I can't really go out. I felt stuck, but thank God I'm not in that place anymore.
Well, I'll ask you this, and just thinking about the different things you've been through. When you were in school, did you feel like, outside of do you feel like on a whole, like a majority of teachers or staff were supportive, or did they even know like what you were going through?
I don't think that any of my teachers, I wouldn't say they didn't care about me, but they didn't care about my outside life. They definitely cared about, obviously my schoolwork and where I was doing grade-wise, but honestly, that was about it. I don't think anybody outside of you knew what was kind of going on with me.
Was that because you chose not to disclose what you were going through to them, or was it just that you didn't feel enough of a connection?
Honestly, looking back, there was definitely telltale signs that there was something going on with me, especially during my senior year. And I feel like a lot of people write it off as like senioritis, they don't want to do anything, yada, yada, yada. But in my case, it was really like I'm exhausted, working 2 jobs after school and on weekends, and then waking up at 6 a.m., your schedule's all over the place. And then I would still, especially during senior year, I still tried to have some type of friendships outside and some type of relationships outside. So I had that on top of everything. But there were definitely telltale signs. I think I had maybe like 2 teachers who would check in on me and just be like, hey, are you okay? You all right? But that was about it. I don't think anybody really genuinely was like, Sam, I know something's going on. Are you okay? In that sense.
Well, what would you say to that teacher that maybe has a student that maybe comes in with like similar signs, like they're exhausted or they seem like
very short?
Yeah, just maybe that student may have a lot going on. What would you say to that teacher as far as advice on like how to interact with that student and be supportive?
I think throughout high school, I feel like I definitely shifted over time. I can't really say keep an eye on them, but definitely try to have that conversation. I knew at the time when I was younger, I didn't want to have that conversation. I didn't want to let anybody in just because I was scared. I don't know why, but I definitely had a fear of opening up, especially in high school. I didn't think anybody was really there for me. But as long as you're vocal and you're actually putting towards the effort to really getting to know your students, eventually, I definitely feel like I would have opened up. I definitely would have been more vocal. And just pay attention to the signs. Sometimes, honestly, a little bit of irritability it definitely means something else. Or a student who is sleeping, it definitely might not be just because, they were out all night. It definitely can be from working.
Exactly, yeah. And I noticed, and just, doing research and just looking online at different things, a lot of students now that I see in high school are having to support, step into the supportive financial role along with the parents. What advice would you give to that student that may be in a similar situation? What advice could you give them as far as like hope and staying positive?
I think one of the benefits of me having to step up in that role was that since high school didn't teach me how to be financially responsible, my life did. I'm 20 years old now. I'm blessed to say that I have a good credit score. I learned about credit. I've invested into stocks as, a part-time hobby. I recently just got a brand new car. So it's definitely been a blessing as much as it's been a curse. I'm blessed to say that I'm in a comfortable position now where I can travel as well as take care of my mom and live the life that I am starting to form. But definitely in high school, it was tough. Just honestly, try to keep your head up. It's easier said than done, but I think just pushing through and really looking at the circumstances of I'm doing this, obviously selflessly, it's definitely benefited me. And on top of that, it's made me and my mom's relationship grow a lot closer to the point where I know she knows that she can depend on me way more than she probably thought she could have at age 16. But yeah, eventually you're gonna get to the point where it gets better. It gets hard, but it gets way better, honestly. And I feel like me having to step into that role at a younger place has put me well above my age range in the sense of responsibilities, as well as having conversations, and even in job positions. Luckily, starting this new job, as soon as I started, I think in October, I ended up getting a promotion just because of how I carry myself and the way I view things, my perspective. But just know that it's okay to be a kid every once in a while, but only after you're done doing your responsibilities. It becomes a lot more fun after everything's settled.
Yeah, after you handle your business.
Yeah, handle your business first, and then it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so I guess what I'll ask you now is, so how are you now, and what are your goals?
I'm great. Thank God I'm great. I ended up going through therapy for a little bit just to help with my anxiety. I should go back, but I would say I'm content. I wouldn't say I'm fully happy. I feel like I'm comfortable in the position that I am in. Obviously, since turning 20, there's no more curfew, so I can pretty much do as I please in a sense, but obviously keeping that respect for my mom. But she definitely trusts me a lot more. I definitely have a lot of freedom. But with that being said, I also have a really good head on my shoulders from dealing with everything. But yeah, my relationship with my mom's gotten better. My brother's having a niece, so that's exciting. Like I said before, new car, new job. I've met a lot of new friends as well. Traveling, I'm living my life to the best extent of what I can right now. And I know it's only gonna get better. My next step, honestly, would just be to move out. But I don't know. I'll get there when I get there. No rush.
What advice would a 20-year-old Sam give to the 16-year-old Sam?
Honestly, you got this. You got this. And I know it's hard right now, and I know it's a lot of confusion. I know you're in a situation that you probably don't like right now, but you're strong. And eventually you're gonna figure it out, that you're gonna figure out your place.